Good morning, everyone. In last class, we studied electricity, basics of electricity, uh, Ohm's law, temperature coefficient of resistance, and specific resistance. Resistance, what is resistance, and the resistance, effective resistance when the resistors are connected in series and connected in parallel. This is covered in the last class. This is the one of the most important area and topic from our syllabus, diploma syllabus, and also for further continuation of studies for the electrical people. It is very important chapter, especially for electrical, but important for all the branches. In today's session, we will discuss about moving coil galvanometer, Kirchhoff laws, and the applications of Kirchhoff laws, that is the Wheatstone bridge. These three topics are covered in today's session. Here, these are the topics: moving coil galvanometer, Wheatstone bridge, meter bridge, potentiometer, ammeter, voltmeter. All these comes under the measuring instruments. So current is measured in amperes. So to measure current, we are using ammeter. It's a device. To measure the potential difference or potential or voltage, we are using a voltmeter. And to small electric current, to measure the small electric current, we are using the moving coil galvanometer. It's a very sensitive device. Moving coil galvanometer is a very sensitive device which is used to measure and detect the very small currents in the circuit. So this moving coil galvanometer works on the principle of a current carrying wire placed in a uniform magnetic field. It experiences torque. When you place a current carrying wire which is wounded, a rectangular coil which is placed in a magnetic field of two horseshoe magnets which are in the spherical in a shape. So we are using this spherical in shape to get a high intensity radial field. So when you place this current carrying wire, rectangular wire, in a magnetic field, this rectangular wire experiences a mechanical force. The mechanical force is a torque. Under the action of this torque, the coil rotates, and this deflection of the coil is directly proportional to the current flowing through the coil. This is the fundamental principle of moving coil galvanometer, working principle of moving coil galvanometer. This torque can be explained by the Fleming's left hand rule, right? So the moving coil galvanometer is a device which is used to measure and detect very small electric current. This is a sensitive device to measure the current. The working principle is, when a current carrying conductor is placed in a magnetic field, it experiences torque. Under the action of this torque, the coil rotates, and the deflections in the coil is directly proportional to the current flowing through the coil. This is the basic principle of a moving coil galvanometer. So how the moving coil galvanometer is constructed? Let us see the construction of the moving coil galvanometer. The moving coil galvanometer consists A horseshoe magnet which is shown by N and S. These are the N and S are the two poles poles of the horseshoe magnet, and a rectangular frame which is wounded with a large number of isolated copper wire. Rectangular coil which is wounded with a number of turns of isolated copper wire. This is a non-metallic cylinder and we have a non-metallic cylinder placed in between the inside this coil, and this coil is suspended with a busbar branch strip from a movable torsion. The rectangular coil is placed in a horseshoe magnets. This is suspended with a busbar branch wire from a movable torsion. See this here, this is a rectangular coil, and non-metallic shaft is placed inside the coil. This is the non-metallic shaft, and this is suspended with a busbar branch wire from a torsion screw. This is the torsion screw. Alright, so these magnetic poles are concave in shape. Here the magnetic poles are concave in shape. This concave shape, due to this shape, it produces radial and high intensity. These are the concave, so due to that it produces high intensity and radial magnetic field. A non-magnetic metal cylinder should be filled within the soft iron. The non-metal soft iron cylinder should be placed in a, here C is representing the non-metal cylinder. It is placed in a coil. This soft iron core increases the strength of the radial magnetic field. This increases the radial magnetic field due to its high permeability. This non-metallic soft iron core has the highest permeability. That's why it produces radial magnetic field. It increases the strength of radial magnetic field. Right? So the soft iron non-metallic cylinder is filled with within the rectangular frame. This coil is suspended with a busbar branch screw and busbar branch wire from a torsion screw, which is free to rotate about its vertical axis. Torsion screw is free to rotate about its axis, and the other end of the busbar branch wire coil connected to the light spring, a small spring, and finally it is to terminal 2, and the torsion head is connected to the terminal 1. Here a concave lens representing M1. See in picture M1. This is a concave lens mirror is placed to suspension strip. Fixed to the suspension strip to note the deflections of the coil using lamp and scale arrangement. It is used to measure the deflections of the current, right? This is the moving coil galvanometer construction. Now, how it works? So see this, a PQRS. See here, say this is PQRS. PQRS is a single turn coil, right? So in this coil, the current is flowing here. Current is flowing, I is flowing in this coil in a radial magnetic field. Here this one is the actually red is this one here, right? This is a top view. Here radial magnetic field is produced due to the spherical shape of the horseshoe magnet. ABC, here this PQRS is a single turn coil. When current passes through it, P and R experiences some force normal to its and deflects towards as per the Fleming's left hand rule. Similarly, QS side also experiences equal and opposite force to that P and R. Here, see this, a coil. Take the single coil PQRS. PQRS is a single coil. Current I is passing through this coil, right? This is placed in the magnetic fields, north and south magnetic fields. This is north and this one is south magnetic fields. So here radial magnetic field is there. Now this P and Q experiences some force. P and Q experiences some force. The force is the force F. Consider this force is F, and this PQ and this PR and QS sides are parallel to the field, so they do not experience any force. And the same way, this force F is acting in this direction, and the same force acts on a RS side. These two sides are experiences some force. The force is equal. This force is the force as the plane coil remains parallel, there is no force on the two sides, right? Here on this PQRS, on these two sides no force. On these two sides no force, only these two sides experiences force. The force is in opposite direction, right? The force is in a opposite direction, so it moves in such a direction. This is the perpendicular distance between these two forces. These two forces are parallel to each other and opposite in the direction, so it produces torque. The PQRS limbs will always remain perpendicular to the plane of the coil. As the sides PR, QS, these two sides PR and QS are parallel to the field, so no force acts on these two sides. So now the force acting on these two sides, the force acting on these two sides is, here let see the strength of the coil, current through the coil is I. Current is taken as I. Current is taken as I, and length of the coil is PQ and RS. Length of the coil is taken as L, and breadth of the coil is taken as B, right? So this is the coil, this is L, this is B. Length of the coil is taken as B. Now so area of the coil, length of the coil is taken as L. L is the length, B is the breadth, and I is the current passing through the coil. So now what is the area? Area of the coil is equal to L into B. Area of the coil is equal to L into B. So here the force is experienced by the limbs. On the PQ side, on this side, the force is acting on these two sides. So this is a PQ, this one is a RS. As force on PQ, on this force in this direction, F equals to BIL. The B is the magnetic field strength, I is the current passing through this, coil, and L is the length. And similarly on this other second side, RS also, F equals to BIL. These two forces are equal but opposite in the direction. The forces are acting these are equal and non-linear. It constitute a couple. And the perpendicular distance is this, so it constitutes a torque. It constitutes torque, right? So here see this, the perpendicular distance is this, the force F1 is acting in this direction, another force is acting in that direction. These are the two forces acting, and here this is the breadth of this coil. Distance between these two coils is the B. Now the torque acting on the coils, so it consists some torque. So torque acting on the coil is torque equals to force into perpendicular distance. So what is the force here? Tau equals to force into perpendicular distance is B. Force equals to BIL into B. You can write this L into B as a area. BIA. This torque on single coil, one turn. If it has a number of turns, the coil is wounded with the number of turns, then tau can be here. The torque is tau equals to BIA. If it has number of turns, then tau can be written as BIAN. BIAN is a torque acting, or you can write it as a torque equals to tau equals to number of turns into BIA. This is a torque acting on a rectangular shape which is wounded with the number of turns. Right? So now due to the deflection, the coil rotates. Due to the deflection, coil rotates, and the twist is produced in a suspension wire. This coil is suspended with a pass bar branch wire. So in this wire, a twist is developed. So the twist produces restoring torque. This restoring torque is directly proportional to the deflections, angle of deflections. So here the torque is tau equals to N into BI the torque equals to BIAN. This is a torque produced by the metallic rectangular frame, but the twister acting on this restoring torque is C theta. This is a restoring torque. This restoring torque and this tau always equal. This restoring torque always equal. To rotate this coil, they try to rotate. The torsion couple is proportional to the twist produced in the wire. So the coil will rotate till the equilibrium is established. Right? So in this equilibrium position, coil does not rotate any further. If theta is the angle through the coil rotates, and the C is the torsion couple, for unit twist, and theta is the angle through which the coil rotates, that couple requires to twist the wire an angle of angle of 1 radian. Then this movement of restoring couple for equilibrium condition, C theta equals to tau. So here BIAN equals to C theta. BIAN equals to C theta. So this is a device which is used to measure the current. So I need the current. So taking all this, C theta by number of turns N into BA. If I take this C by NBA as constant, then I is directly proportional to G. So I can write this as equals to G theta. So where G is a galvanometer constant. So now you can write this I equals to G theta. G is a galvanometer constant. So you can write this I directly proportional to theta. From this, the deflections of the coil is proportional to the current passing through the coil. The scale is calibrated and can give direct value of the magnitude of direct value and magnitude of the current passing through the coil. It gives the direct value I is directly proportional to theta. Right? Here I is directly proportional to theta. Therefore, if the deflections are more, the current will be more. Current is decreased means automatically the deflection will be less. So this is the working function of a moving coil galvanometer. So this galvanometer is a device which cannot be used to measure the currents flow at flow of large currents. It causes the damage. Galvanometer is sensitive device, therefore it cannot measure heavy currents. So you have to avoid this problem. If flow of large current is there in a galvanometer, it damages the galvanometer. To avoid this and to measure accurately, we have to do some other modifications or connections. Here the ammeter is a device or an instrument used to measure large current passing through the circuit. For this purpose, it is put a series with a circuit which the current is measured. For accurate measurement, the ammeter must have two properties. That is, one is the very small resistance, 0 is the ideal case, and a very large current carrying capacity. It should have these two properties. And galvanometer is a sensitive instrument. It cannot measure heavy currents. In order to avoid all these, we can convert galvanometer as an ammeter by simply connecting a resistance in parallel. Then the galvanometer behaves like a ammeter. The low resistance, here you have to connect a low resistance to the galvanometer in series. See here, this is the galvanometer, G is the galvanometer, a small low current is connected in parallel. Then this is behave like a ammeter. So this galvanometer behaves like a ammeter. Adding this low resistance, it converts into ammeter. This low resistance is called as a shunt resistance. The shunt is connected to galvanometer in parallel, then the galvanometer becomes ammeter. Here the galvanometer resistance is Z. See, the galvanometer resistance is taken as G, and maximum current is measured is I. So the maximum current that pass through the galvanometer is Ig, is the maximum current passing through the galvanometer. So what is the net current passing? What is the current passing through the shunt? Yes, is given as I minus Ig. I minus Ig is the shunt current. Ig is the galvanometer current, right? I is the maximum current in the ammeter. So S and G are parallel combination. S and G are the parallel combination. Shunt and galvanometer resistance are parallel combinations. So here the voltage drop across the voltage drop across the shunt are equal to the voltage drop across the galvanometer. So what is the voltage drop here in the shunt? That is I minus Ig into S, current into V equals to IR. So I is I minus Ig in the shunt, and S is the shunt current, Ig into G. Ig is the galvanometer current, and G is the resistance in galvanometer. According to the Ohm's law, I am writing I minus Ig into S equals to Ig into G. So from this, the shunt current can be Ig G by I minus Ig. This is the shunt current. shunt resistance passing through the resistance. Now the effective resistance. What is the effective resistance? Here we have the value of shunt which is connected in parallel to the galvanometer, and connections in converted into ammeter range from 0 to I amperes. 0 to I amperes. Here the effective resistance, we have two resistances parallel connected in parallel, so effective resistance R 1 by R equals to 1 by G plus 1 by S. Last class we studied the effective resistances when the resistors are more number of resistors are connected. Then 1 by R equals to take LCM GS and S plus G. Therefore you can write this as R effective resistance equals to GS by S plus G. This is the effective resistance when you connect a shunt to the galvanometer in parallel. So from this effective resistance of the ammeter is smaller than the shunt resistance. Since shunt resistance is low resistance, the resistance of ammeter is very low, then it is connected in series in the circuit. It is not affect the current passing through the circuit. A ammeter is a combination of galvanometer and shunt. Low resistance shunt which is having low resistance is connected in a parallel. So like this we can convert the galvanometer into ammeter. So next one is the conversion of old galvanometer into voltmeters. Conversion of galvanometer into voltmeter. So here a high resistance is connected in a series with the galvanometer, then the galvanometer converted into voltmeter. Voltmeter is a device which is used to measure the potential differences. Potential differences are voltage between the 2 points in a circuit. So galvanometer is a sensitive device. Therefore, it cannot measure high potential differences. In order to convert this galvanometer into voltmeter, a very high resistance is connected in a series with the galvanometer. This high resistance is also called as a series resistance. For if the G is a galvanometer resistance, Ig is the maximum deflection in the galvanometer. Ig is the maximum deflections, and V is the voltmeter by the voltmeter potential, and R is the high resistance. The voltage V, that is the maximum voltage measured by the voltmeter. Then you can write this V equals to Ig into R plus G. So therefore from this equation R can be written as V by Ig minus G. This equation gives the value of resistance R. This resistance connected in a series to the galvanometer is converted into the voltmeter range from 0 to V volts. The effective resistance of voltmeter is RV equals to R plus G. So sum of the two resistances, galvanometer resistance and series resistance, which is connected in a series. The resistance of voltmeter RV is high and it will not draw much current of the circuit. So the way voltmeter is a combination of the galvanometer in a series with a high resistance. Voltmeter is a combination of a galvanometer in series with a high resistance. Ammeter is a combination of a galvanometer and shunt low resistance in a parallel connection, right? So in these two processes we can convert the galvanometer and galvanometer into ammeter and voltmeter. Ammeter is a instrument to use to measure the current, high currents, and voltmeter is a device or instrument used to measure the voltage or potential differences. Galvanometer is a device, sensitive device, which is used to measure the very small currents, right? So now, if in last class we studied about the Ohm's law. By using Ohm's law, we can find out the resistance or voltage or current passing through the wire, conducting wire. If you know any two of these, if the number of wires are connected at a single point, then what happens? It is difficult to find out the resistance or current or voltage by using Ohm's law when the number of conductors are connected at a single point, right? So Robert Kirchhoff introduced two important electrical laws. We can easily find the equivalent resistance of a complex network or flowing current in different conductors. These circuits can be solved simply by using these simple laws. These laws are called as Kirchhoff's current law and Kirchhoff's voltage law. So Kirchhoff's current law is also known as the first law, Kirchhoff's first law or Kirchhoff's junction law. Here, what is a junction? Junction means the more than 2 or 3 lines are connected at a point is called as a junction. For example, this is a point where the number of wires are connected. Now this point is called as a junction. So for example, I1, current 1, current 2, current 3 are coming toward the junction, current 4 also coming towards the junction, and 5 is going away from the junction and 6 is going away from the junction. So see this, in this figure we have 3 connections. So the current, sum of the all currents leaving a junction in any electric network is always equals to 0. The first law says that the algebraic sum of all the currents meeting at any junction is equals to 0. For example, here I1, I2, I3 are the currents which is equals to 0. Or see the picture, all the currents are going away from the junction, but the currents which are coming toward the junction, for example here this is the junction, the 2 or 3 currents coming toward the junction and 2 currents going away from the junction, which are coming taken as positive, which are going away from taken as negative, right? So here the currents which are coming toward the junction are equals to going away from the junction. With say for example 4-5 currents are there, 1 2 3 are coming inside and 4 and 5 going away. Now I1 plus I2 plus I3 equals to I4 minus plus I5. So these going away are taken as minus and coming in are taken as plus. So you can write it as I1 plus I2 plus I3 plus I4 plus I5 equals to 0. Therefore summation of currents 0. This is the first law of Kirchhoff or Kirchhoff's current law. This is the Kirchhoff's current law. Suppose some conductors carrying current they are coming towards the junction and some are leaving from the junction. So the leaving are taken as a minus, are coming taken as a plus. Summation of all the currents are equal, or you can say that the sum of the currents coming toward the junction are and going away from the junction are equal. This is a Kirchhoff's current law or Kirchhoff's first law. It is also known as a junction law. Next one is a Kirchhoff's voltage law. This Kirchhoff's voltage law is known as the Kirchhoff's second law, or it is also known as loop law or voltage law. So Kirchhoff's first law is a junction law or current law. Kirchhoff's second law is a Kirchhoff's voltage law, or it is called as a loop law. Here the algebraic sum of all the voltages around any closed path is equals to 0. So sum of the voltages are equals to 0. Sum of the V equals to 0. Or all the potential differences across the circuit is equals to 0. This is the second law. In this case, for example, I am taking this as see here. For example, a resistance, another resistance is connected to the battery. Here it is connected to the battery. A small resistance, another resistance, it is connected to the battery. This is a positive, this one is a negative, right? And another resistance. Here I am having three resistance, R1, R2, R3. Three resistance. This is a battery EMF E. So first consider the first loop. First consider the first loop. Here we have two resistances and one EMF battery. So here voltages. What is the voltage across this R1? I1. R1 is the resistance across R1, and I2 R2 is the resistance across R second resistance. So E is the EMF, right? This is the here the voltages across the throughout the loop is equal. And now observe the second loop. Second, here we have the two resistances. So the two voltages are there, that is R3 minus I2 R2, which is equals to 0 because there is no EMF. So when the current passing in a you can take a direction clockwise or anti-clockwise. If you are taking clockwise, all the voltages moving in the clockwise taken as plus, and which are moving opposite in the clockwise direction taken as negative. So by this you can write this R is moving in this direction and R2 is moving R is moving clockwise direction, I3, and I2 is moving in the anti-clockwise. So it is taken as a minus. This is the fundamental rule we have to follow while giving the signs. But there is not necessary to give the negative sign to this one and positive sign to that one. You have to take your own direction, which you have taken. Which are the voltages moving in the taken direction is taken as a plus, which are opposite in the taken direction is taken as negative. So summation of all the voltages across any loop uh, is equals to 0, or all the voltages are equal and all the EMFs are equal to the voltages across the loop or circuit. This is known as a second law. The first law is summation of all the currents. First law is summation of all the currents at any junction is 0, and second law is summation of all the currents at any circuit or loop is equals to 0. These two laws are the fundamental laws in the electricity, and these laws are known as the conservation laws in the electricity, right? So this is the most important area for the examination point of view and essay question purpose, moving coil galvanometer and Kirchhoff laws. Briefly explain the moving coil galvanometer and explain first law of Kirchhoff's and second law of Kirchhoff's. These are the three important questions for the examination point of view. So hope you understand the moving coil galvanometer and Kirchhoff laws. In next session we will discuss about the applications of Kirchhoff laws. Moving coil galvanometer, you can write the moving coil galvanometer answer. First you have to define the moving coil galvanometer, then you have to write the principle, then description and then theory, how it works, and you have to draw a figure. For all the three questions, moving coil galvanometer or Kirchhoff first law or Kirchhoff second law, figure plays an important role. If you are right, for example, you are drawing a figure for the moving coil Kirchhoff's first law like this. Now observe this here, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines are coming in and only 5 is going out. So you have to write I1 plus I2 plus I3 plus I4 minus I5 equals to 0, or these 4 which are equals to I5, right? If you write different manner, then there is a chances to lose the marks. So concentrate on the particular figure. Your figure and your explanation should be matched, otherwise the marks will be reduced. So you have to concentrate on your figure and then your equations, right? Follow the instructions, otherwise you will lose marks. Thank you very much.